Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of the Rewatch podcast presented by the Terrible Video Gamers Club. I'm your host, Tyler Schatz, standing over the body of Baelish, hoping he'll rest in hell comfortably. Joining me this fine recording session are one Stephen Howard.
Among the Dothraki riders, wondering whose bright idea it was to ride up after everyone else was already at the wall. Maybe it's just for TV, who knows?
We're late.
Those pesky Dothraki there, they just come and go as they please, apparently. Amanda Howard.
Who, like Bran, thinks she remembers everything, but also like Bran is sometimes lacking some vital knowledge.
One Nick Castillo.
Always with the straight quotes. Enough people make false promises, words stop meaning anything.
Ooh.
And
Love
last,
that one.
but never ever least, Gary Delaney.
Wondering how the Hound drew the short straw and had to release the zombie from a box. Like, he had to have plenty of time on the ride down to be like, hey, who's gonna do this? And everyone just goes silently and says, we're gonna let you do this. We're gonna give you the honor of, like, releasing a zombie from the box. That sounds like an innuendo, but it's not.
Only with you.
One time, it's not an innuendo with Gary.
The one time.
Gary, I have to start off the podcast saying I'm disappointed that you didn't lead off with the best line in the whole episode. Your intro. Right off the beginning,
What?
when Bronn is on the wall talking to Jamie, maybe it is all
Ron?
Cox in the end.
Ron.
Ron
Ron.
Weasley.
Maybe it is
No.
all Cox in the end.
Hmm.
That's what I was hoping
Ron
you'd lead with.
Weasley.
Yes,
Nick,
when
not
Ron
every
Weasley is
intro
standing
needs
next
to be about
Jamie.
quotes. You can just go down the dark holes and
And
be
set up
just as
later
enjoyable.
points. You quit making innuendos, man.
All right, so to get us back on track here, because we have a podcast to record tonight, we are here watching episode 7 from season 7, The Dragon and the Wolf. Everyone meets in King's Landing to discuss the fate of the realm. In Winterfell, Sansa confronts Arya. Sam reaches Winterfell, where he and Bran discover a shocking secret about Jon Snow. And, oh boy. So, where do I want to start here for this whole thing? I mean, the big thing here, obviously, is right away at the beginning. We get, like, the biggest collection of main characters and main side characters coming together in pretty much Game of Thrones history.
Yeah.
Every major character left standing is coming together for this meeting in King's Landing.
The Dragon Pit, new location.
In the Dragon Pit. So I guess speaking of the Dragon Pit, and I don't know if anyone knows this or whatever, is that a real, like, I mean, so the Dragon Pit is
A
real
fake
in
TV
Game of
show.
Thrones history. I understand that. But, like, where they filmed that, does anyone
Oh, I
remember,
don't-
like, what that was? Or was that actually, like, a real thing that they maybe just added some digital effects to or whatever?
Oh, so you're asking if it was a functional location like an abandoned quarry, or if it was like an all digital arena?
Yeah.
Or maybe they filmed it in a Roman ruin.
I do
That would
not
be
know.
my guess.
I think they film in Spain mainly for the King's Landing stuff.
Well,
Yeah, I
it
feel
has
like
Roman
I
shit.
feel like I saw Malta mentioned a bunch, and then I know Ireland was for like the north. But
Yeah, because that was a big behind the scenes production thing. Was like half of the cast was always in a really icy like location, and the other half is in King's Landing, where it's like nice all year long.
Spain just chilling out on the
Just
Mediterranean
Spain, yeah.
coast.
Right. I'm probably butchering this, but it looks to be the ruins of Italica in Santa Ponce, Spain.
So it is Roman ruin.
Be my guess. Roma.
Either a Roman ruin or probably maybe a Moorish ruin.
You're a Moorish ruin.
Your face is a Moorish ruin. I'll make your face into a Moorish ruin. Bring it on, Gary.
Nick, did it say what the ruin used to be? Was it a temple or was it like actually an amphitheater?
Hold that thought. No, it does not say. This is just a quick glance.
I was just curious because if it's an amphitheater, it's kind of nice to think about the fact that it was for shows and plays back when, and now it's still being
Ooh.
used for that.
That would be actually
true.
really cool. That's a really cool thought.
An ancient Roman city in Hispania, its site is close to the town of Santa Ponce in the province of Seville, Spain. It was founded in 206 BC by Roman general Scipio as a colonia for his Italic veterans and named after them.
Hippio
So,
Africanus, baby.
are we getting Nick to voice like one of the next like version of the Google or Alexa things?
I don't think anyone wants that.
I am free to take insert name here as the next person who wants to sponsor the podcast.
So
I want to. Oh, sorry.
I guess here to kind of branch off of Steven's introduction there of like the Dothraki just randomly showing up. Like, again, this kind of goes back to like the logic of Game of Thrones seems to be kind of slowly
Mhm.
going out the window,
Degrading.
leaving the arena, whatever. Because it's like everyone's standing up on the wall watching the Unsullied out there, and then all of a sudden they're surprised by the Dothraki just showing up when you could have seen them for hundreds of miles.
Yeah.
I think it's supposed to be a juxtaposition of Daenerys' army between the Unsullied, which are very organized and in formation,
Discipline.
and the Dothraki that is just chaos that like ebbs and flows through the gaps in
All right.
the lines.
So Gary, I agree with you, but it doesn't make any more sense. I entirely believe that is what they were going for, is the two chaoses of her army, one of pure order, one of absolute, chaos.
And she's saying both will like ruin your day.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make any sense because of what
Yeah.
How they
Tyler
didn't-
said.
How
Do you know how
they
far
didn't
away you can see? Sorry, real quick. Do you
Quite a
know
bit.
how far away you can see galloping horses? How much dust and dirt?
dust of
they-
galloping horses?
Right.
I don't know why they didn't see them, but I did have a note about this and something later on that I'll reference that highlights. I thought that this was kind of a show of force for Daenerys. Like, here's all my armies, blah blah blah, flex. That's kind of
I
what
agree.
I saw it as. I don't get as to why they didn't see them either, but yeah.
I did wonder, like, I mean, they almost at first. I completely misunderstood when I was first watching this, even though how many times I've seen this show. I thought for a second they were at Casterly Rock, and I was like, "What is happening?" Because there was no siege machines on the wall. Are they gonna attack the walls with cavalry? Like, that's probably not a good idea. Then I realized it was King's Landing, and it still had the same questions. Where are the siege machines? Where's the defenses on the wall against anything? The walls are a little bit smaller than I remember also, I thought.
Yes. That was something that I had as well. A theme with some of these scenes going forward is the location of where we're meant to be as opposed to the greater King's Landing. The Dragon Pit, the Sept of Baelor, and the Red Keep are meant to be on the three hills of the landscape on that area of King's Landing. So they're kind of like, here, we're at the Dragon Pit, and they're just like off by themselves, and it's kind of like Olive Gardens or something nearby. It didn't really seem like they were going up a hill, and that's kind of what I anticipated, having a little bit better understanding than the first time I saw this episode. But same thing, in that beginning shot, it's like, where exactly are we with this gigantic field that can house, I don't know how many, screaming Dothraki screamer riders she has, as along with the Unsullied troops. It's confusing. Steven.
And so Amanda actually mentioned, like what she was saying, when she brings up, she's like, Steven, would they send in cavalry next to the walls if they were like trying to threaten them? I'm like, no, that's probably the dumbest possible thing you could humanly do, is to send the cavalry next to the walls where they can't do anything, but they can all be killed. It just that entire point. I get it's to make a show of force, but all it does for me is just show how inept they would be in this sort of battle. They would come in and they would be sending cavalry against the walls and, some troops. And I still want to know where all these Unsullied are, because they've been killed off twice in two navies. So who knows where they're at.
Amanda, you asked Steven a question about combat in antiquity? You silly thing, you.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, he does have a lot of knowledge, but you do got to be careful, because if you're not, if you pick a subject he's a little too enthusiastic on, You've either got to cut them off or
Hey,
you're going to have to
now.
listen to it for 4 hours.
I just imagine
now.
Steven has like a permanent little like transportable pointer where he's like, let me tell you about it.
It's not a pointer, okay? It's a slideshow. It's a slideshow. Thank you. You do everything via PowerPoint. Sorry.
I actually did I do remember asking Steven that, and when I realized, oh, they're in King's Landing, it made a lot more sense because they're not actually attacking. Although there's a show of force, but I would not have sent the Dothraki in unless you were willing for it to come to battle right then. Which I mean, Daenerys does really want actually to happen. The only reason she's not is because Tyrion keeps arguing with her. But I also I remember thinking again. I've been watching House of the Dragon at the same time, and I do the scenes there don't quite they've made everything bigger and grander, and I hate that it's kind of a discrepancy, but I kind of like it because it looks more accurate to what I'd see, and yet they they put their army on the one side of the walls, and then they walk really far away to the dragon pit, which is presumably within the walls, from my understanding
Yes.
of King's Landing geography.
Yes.
So, okay, interesting. Well, why is your army all the way over there? It's not going to do any good. Although I did notice that once they got in the dragon pit, the Dothraki were also... They did a quick little scene of the Dothraki, kind of noting the placement of Cersei's soldiers, and I thought that was interesting because the Dothraki are supposed to be pretty good warriors, and for the last couple seasons, they've just been glorified guards that you don't really see ever do anything. Kind of wish they'd show that a little more. Go ahead, Gary. I kind of rambled there.
Yeah, Amanda.
I was
gotta
just
stop you.
gonna say, is this maybe just a proof of the not poor writing, but that what Game of Thrones writes well is political intrigue, but when it gets to military strategy, they're not really interested in that. They're really just gonna dumb that down to the base understanding of what looks good on television.
Entirely agree with that. Real quick before anyone interjects, I entirely agree with Gary's point there.
Yeah, Steven, what I was going to say was we should just send...
Steven, no, what have you done, Steven?
You agreed with Gary, you did. Now his ego's going up. Steven, what I was going to say is we should just send them you so you can correct all the military strategy issues.
That'll be a poor decision. There are many people that know a lot more than I do.
Exactly, and then they can criticize you too.
Yay!
But based on the budget of Game of Thrones, I think you're within their budget.
That's fair enough. They don't gotta offer me much. Hey, I will travel to all these locations and they can pay me based on that. But
you'll work for per diem.
Exactly.
I am trying to decide how much of a compliment and an insult that is at the same time. I love it.
Right.
So I did want to mention one more thing when I was watching this scene that I didn't see, and maybe this has been there before, but I noticed that all of the Unsullied, their logo on their chest, what is it? It's a coat of arms, I guess it would be. But it's three dragons eating each other in an Ouroboros sort of fashion. And I thought that was I'm not sure if that was meant to be something, but
three dragons eating each other.
No, I actually did see that at one point because it wasn't that one. And throughout the Targaryen history, some of the Targaryens switch their little coat of arms up a little bit. It's always some kind of 3 dragon heads, but sometimes they switch it to differentiate themselves from the other Targaryens. So I did actually catch that, Stephen. I forgot about that. Why didn't I put that in my notes?
The different Baratheons? What? I guess I never caught that the Dothraki even had a coat of arms.
It's kind of like the Blackfish. The Blackfish was still a Tully, but his little personal thing became a black version of the Tully sigil. And sometimes different Targaryens had that, but Daenerys didn't. So I did actually wonder why her Unsullied suddenly changed their little crest. Maybe it was easier to put on their armor. I don't know.
I'm sure it was. It just, for me, it was just the idea that it was an Ouroboros that they had on there, which is supposed to be.
What is an Ouroboros?
Oh, okay.
I know what an orifice is. That's where people stick objects.
It is.
I told you he's going to go down that path if you let him.
An Ouroboros is a circular. It's usually like a dragon that eats its own tail. So if it eats its own tail, it's kind of like a metaphor for.
You've seen
a whole bunch
snakes
of
doing it.
A recycling symbol,
Not exactly
I think
cycling.
you're just
But-
making this shit up sometimes.
But the point being, the point of it is more that the three dragons consuming one another is, to me, maybe a statement of the instability of what she has created, or maybe the ephemeral nature of what she has created.
Ouroboros, a circular
Oh.
symbol depicting a snake, or less commonly a dragon, swallowing its tail as an emblem of wholeness or infinity.
Ooh, nice job, Steven. I
to
watched Gary's
Steven.
face and mine both like jump at that word at the same
It
time.
wasn't that he.
For different reasons.
It wasn't that he
Said
said
it
it
twice.
once. It was that he said it like the fifth time. I was like, I have no idea what in the he is talking about.
To
Like,
build off
yeah,
Steven's
but to Nick.
point, it was also not just what Dany has built, but the Targaryens have kind of been infighting and killing each other off for like, generations.
It's true.
All right.
Now I'm trying to find photos of their armor quick.
I wanted to quickly just touch on two quick points, and then I was going to turn it over to somebody else. Shout out to the Clegane Bowl. Air horns are blowing there, getting us all hyped for the fight. It's a coming.
Maybe I was someone who just didn't care, but like when I saw that scene, I was like, obviously they're trying to set that up as like the next big like confrontation that has personal stakes, but it was just bland. I thought that I just have never been a fan of the Clegane Bowl. Nick,
Because I've always liked antagonisting Tyler. I agree with you, Gary. I think it's cool for it to come up, but it's like, yeah, they hate each other. Move on. Big whoa.
okay,
But
here's a bonus question as
Tyler
you talked about, or
Tyler and his air horn of Clegane Bowl is already on my nerves.
okay, here's a bonus question on following up on Steven's comment about orifices and sigils on breastplates. Cersei's Knight's Guard or King's Guard are not gold cloaks; they're black. All of them are in the same armor as the Mountain, but there was like it wasn't it wasn't a stag or a lion on their breastplates. It was like some
Three
other
interconnected
intricate.
circles.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of. I can't speak to what it was. I did not catch the specific symbol, but I saw the darkening of the Kingsguard, which was traditionally like gold and pure white cloaks, more as like a darkening of the uniform in like the German SS era.
Wow, you're going deep, Nick. I think you're reading too much into this.
They're much more intimidating looking that way. I mean, German soldiers were green in World War One, just like everybody else on the battlefield. Then sort of tannish, and then the SS came through, and everything was dark red and dark black. Evokes an image. That's all I'm saying.
It does invoke an image of I would say, the corruption of the guard.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
The going from, and I think that's a clever illusion, Nick, going from gold and pure white to black and bruised, almost, is what it looks like.
Yeah. In the form of Clegane, right?
Yeah. It's a very much a corruption of the guard, a corruption of what they're supposed to be. And I think I'll be honest, I think the show could have built on that a little better if I knew any of the Kingsguard anymore besides Clegane.
He's not in the. Well, I mean, the Hound was, but I didn't think the Mountain was in the Kingsguard. Oh no, wait,
He's
you're
now.
right. He was later on.
Yeah, he's now mummy.
He's in the dragon pit. He's in he's everywhere Cersei is.
I've got a note there where he stands up in front, threatening Euron, and then threatening to get after everybody else too.
It looks like a sunrise over water or something. Like, I don't know, it's a weird fucking symbol.
I remember seeing something once that reading that after Cersei had her walk of atonement and her hair cut off and everything, that the rest of like her servants and stuff kind of followed suit in order to, because, well, one, I doubt Cersei would have tolerated them to look more beautiful than she was, but also it's kind of a thing, like, you kind of follow whoever's, like, they set the fashion. So you'll it said that her servants, it's a more subtle thing that they started wearing black outfits, and they all cut their hair short too. So that's interesting. Maybe she kind of put that out towards the Kingsguard as well.
Interesting.
Thank you, Tyler, for the image.
You're most welcome, Gary. And the last thing I was going to mention then too is just before everybody even gets into the arena itself, there's just the history between all the characters who are again coming to see each other for the first time in multiple seasons. Bronn and Tyrion meet each other. Pod and Tyrion, Pod and Bronn talk to one another. Brienne and the Hound meet each other. Then Brienne sees Jaime there and everything like that. So there's just a lot of characters kind of getting together again and kind of playing a little bit of catch up of what's been going on and talking to one another.
And Pod.
Pod for King?
Pod for King.
But oh, sorry, did you have something, Amanda?
If Steven's favorite character like wins in the end, like does he
I don't
become?
think there's any way Pod can lose.
Define winning in this universe.
No, don't define it, because that way I can define it however I want.
He has a magic appendage. What more do you need?
He does.
He does.
Pod is very wholesome. I love when we catch glimpses of him.
Since we're talking on that too, really quick side note, when I first saw this episode, I thought Bronn was telling Pod, quit, whatever, you can get after his magic, whatever. Later, we've got work to do, because he was talking to Pod. Oh, he was telling Tyrion, let's get going. You can get after Pod because of his magic appendage. I was like, oh, that has even awesomer meaning. It's been like 5 seasons and they're still talking about how Pod had this one time where he completely blew everybody's mind at this one brothel.
All right, so I am gonna cede my time now to somebody else for a little bit here. Steven, why don't you give us some stuff to ponder?
So I'll be honest, I'm probably going to defer most of my stuff to Amanda and Gary because they took so many notes, but I will start with, I dislike Cersei so much. I really, really do. When they have that conversation, first the conversation, which I'm glad this gets back to the politics, because Gary is right. This show does politics and intrigue so much better than it does warfare or fighting. And towards the end, they keep going, oh, well, let's make this so exciting. Everyone's going to fight and everyone's going to blah, blah, blah. And except for like 3 circumstances, one of which being Tyler, your favorite episode, the Battle of the Bastards, the show doesn't do it well. But they do the kind of the intrigue, everyone leading up to it, all the posturing, positioning very well. And then Tyrion going to talk to Cersei by himself, and Cersei's like, did you know what you did to this family when you shot that crossbow? And it's just like, oh my God. Do you have any idea what you did to this family when you did everything? Like, have some sense. Look in a mirror once in your life. You're rich enough to afford one. Amanda.
Is there a question there, Stephen, before I butt in?
No, there's not. It was more of an observation. It's not really a question.
I do have to wonder if Cersei is your least favorite character. Like, does Gary have a favorite character right now, or he's just left it
That's
in
a
the
good
wind?
question.
He's considering.
Let me
now.
ponder on that for a little bit.
Amanda, you've opened up a can of worms none of us wanted to see what's in.
I want to know. I have to know. One of my first questions I had, did Cersei walk to the dragon pit? She never has before. She's always gone with her, like, you guys are all waving at me. She's always gone with a full, like, panoply of her position of getting the wheelhouse and getting all of that. Instead, like, this is not a small distance either. Go ahead. I'm not sure who's
I have an
first.
answer. My new favorite person
Poor
is
Gary.
Euron Greyjoy.
Oh no.
Oh. It's not even a good
That's
Euron
false.
Greyjoy.
Just-
you have a
trash.
Jack Sparrow Euron
just for the
Greyjoy.
moan, like he is a
Jack Sparrow
Jack
wannabe
Sparrow.
motherfucker.
Oh,
terrible,
God.
terrible one-dimensional
No.
character. Like
Euron doesn't want to be Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow tries to be the good guy. Euron's not trying to be the good guy.
Euron on the show is kind of a washed version of the book. He's like terrifying in the book, and in the show he's just kind of a
Which is so cool.
angry
That's why it's
looking
so cool.
boy band member.
He's like
I
a dog
only
chasing
said
cars. He wouldn't know what to do if he caught one.
I would I only said Euron for the obvious groan because he's the real, but he is a terrible one-dimensional character in the show. Like, I've got to imagine that, like, I don't know if it's writing or the actor that, like, just did not flesh out that character, or just nobody
Writing.
cared.
Writing. They did not know what to do with the character that they didn't set up multiple seasons before this.
Yeah, characters introduced in late seasons are not very good in this show. Like, so yeah, I'll still ponder about a good answer. Over to Nick.
I was going to throw it back to what Steven's prompt was, where he's talking about that interaction with Tyrion and Cersei. And yeah, I wanted to hop on that really quick because yeah, those are both things that Cersei says. Do you have any idea what you did to this family? You left us open and the vultures came. Those were all acts against things that she herself did, things that her and her dad Tywin did. She mentions had a hand in killing Marcella and in killing Tommen. Tommen jumped out the window because she blew up his wife, and Marcella died because Alaria Sand was angry at Cersei. Those had nothing to do with Tyrion. I thought I was watching the video and I was like, why are you blaming him? Like Steven said, that's all, or maybe it was Amanda. That's all in the mirror. That's something you did. Those actions were against you.
But Marcella wouldn't have been in Dorne if it hadn't been for Tyrion sending her away.
Ugh.
Bum bum bum.
The only reason he had to make amends was because Tywin had basically let the Cleganes do whatever he wanted to start a Robert's Rebellion.
Yeah, one of my things I wrote down was honestly like, do you think Tyrion shares any measure of responsibility for this? Because I do think that this is much more to Cersei's action. That is directly because of Cersei's actions. But does she have a point in that even her whole life she's been able to do whatever she wanted to because everyone feared her family and her father so much that she's gotten away with it? To her, all of a sudden he died and all this stuff happened. Like, if Tywin had been alive and they would never have been touched, is that still down to Tyrion? Tyrion clearly, it's clearly weighing on him a little bit because he even says, "You'll never know how sorry I am for that," or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This was a great conversation between the characters. I loved it.
Excellent.
Go ahead, Tyler.
There was even a point Tyrion made there about how Daenerys sought him, or he's an advisor to Daenerys to help curb her base instincts of wanting to destroy everything, and then Cersei comes back and says, I don't need advisors or whatever. Basically just says that I don't need advisors or whatever. I can kind of do what I want, which again kind of feeds into your guys' points that you've been talking about. Also, too, to just bring this up here is Cersei's final ploy to basically curb Tyrion and kind of bring him over a little bit there of like, we're expecting there, kind of putting her hand down on her stomach there, kind of symbolizing that she's could be with child or whatever. And it's just like, this is like at the time I remember it was like, is that even really real? Like, is she really pregnant? I mean, we had the earlier scene with Qyburn whispering to her as Cersei walked in about possibly being pregnant there, and then Cersei telling Jaime that. But at the same time, it's like, I still don't even believe it then too. And here now, I still don't even really believe it. I believe it's more of just a ploy to kind of give her something to sway people with. I think Nick is next.
I had two ones because I had 2 points off what you said there really quick. The first one, crap. All I can remember now is the baby thing. So talking about the baby thing. Remind me about what the other thing was you said there. I remember actually flip-flopping. The first time I saw this, we'd talked about the episode about, is this a ploy? Is this really real? This time watching it to this point, I thought it was more real. Like, it kind of struck me as, crap, maybe she is expecting. The look in Tyrion's face when he goes, "You're pregnant." He's pretty good at calling crap and BS on people. The fact that he said it, and again, poor acting, poor writing, whatever you guys want to throw out, but the way that he responded to it, I think he bought into it a bit more. Maybe it was just I caught something I didn't on a first take, but to me it seemed more real. The way that she tries to describe it, because yeah, at first I kind of thought it was maybe more of a ploy, but on this is only my second rewatch of that particular scene. It seemed more real to me, and it's much more plausible at this point in the story. Not spoiling anything down the road, but I don't know. I think I may have wafted a little bit. My firm stance. What was the other thing you mentioned, Tyler? Because I had another point on what you were talking about.
The conversation between Tyrion telling how Daenerys chooses him as an advisor because he helps, whereas
Yes.
Cersei's just like, I don't need anybody else.
Yes, that's what it was. I have a question on that, so I'll let Steven answer and Amanda answer, and then we can come back to me because I've got a prompt for everyone. Steven.
So I guess my first thing was going back to what Amanda said about does Tyrion share responsibility for what happened and how much responsibility? And I think he certainly shares some responsibility. I mean, you can't exist in that universe without sharing responsibility. Everyone's so interbred, but it's all on her, really and truly. There's to take any of that weight off of her shoulders is to just deny how negative an influence she has been in this entire continent's history. It's amazing how I am not a proponent of the great man theory or great woman theory, however you want to say it, the great person theory of history, but my God, she's going to go down in the history books of this world as just a singularly horrible person. And then I was also going to say the baby thing. I don't think it matters if she's pregnant. I honestly don't. She's a horrible human being, and if Lady Hitler got pregnant, it would not stop me from bombing her palace.
Does it? Are you saying it doesn't matter
agree.
for her character or for the plot?
I should say it doesn't matter. Other people talking to her, it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't weigh on them. It shouldn't be any effect there. Yeah, it's probably going to drive her decision making somewhat, and maybe it should drive her inner circle's decision making. But say when anyone else finds out about her being pregnant, it shouldn't alter any sort of things. It should still be, hey, Cersei's a horrible human being, and you need to get her out of office by any means possible. Does that mean poisoning her food? Yes, it does. And I'm sorry if, yeah, she's pregnant. It is what it is. You can't say, hey, I'm pregnant, therefore I should be immune to the effects of everyone at war with me. I shouldn't be a valid target anymore because I got pregnant. It's not a thing. That's just not how it works. Bomb Lady Hitler. Amanda?
Okay, well, trying to absorb everything you just said there.
Hey.
Quick note on the baby thing. I always assumed that was real just purely because of the way that she doesn't advertise it, because she would have to, even while she had that cavalier attitude of let people know that who the father was, she knows that that's still not going to fully go over perfectly well. Also, she was very willing to tell, she considered definitely for a moment with Jaime that I don't need you anymore. I've got someone else. Back to Cersei, Tyrion, Tywin. I think I do fully agree that Cersei's actions caused all this chaos, and she never understood that it is her own damn fault that all these things happen. She reacts to everybody else, but does not comprehend them reacting to her. On the other hand, from Tyrion's point of view, if you know that this person is going to cause chaos all the time, no matter what, and that your nephew and niece's lives are on the line, if you know that Cersei's going to be a fool no matter what, but they die, is it going to make you feel better knowing, well, it's because of Cersei, even though I could have done something to save their life?
He tried to do something to save their lives.
I don't think it's Tyrion's fault, but I do think he knows that there was something that if he hadn't done what he did, he knows there's a chance that they would still be alive. And so while not being his fault, he can't deny that to himself. Go ahead, Gary.
I was questioning, does her being pregnant ruin the prophecy from many, many seasons ago that how many children she'll have? None of them will be the children of the king.
Good
Gold will
callback,
be their
Gary. I
shrouds
forgot
and
about that one.
that sort of crap. Also, I honestly
Crap.
was kind of on the fence that it was real on the rewatch, and then I watched the D's comment afterwards, and they implied that all of Cersei's interaction with Tyrion was to set up the later things of her like pretending she was gonna help and then not actually help. Like that was all part of the plan. So I think she might be lying. So I don't know. Tyler?
Cersei wouldn't lie, Gary.
I don't know.
So, yeah, you touched on the point here that I was thinking about saving towards the end of the episode if we wanted to do like the inside the episode points at the end. But yeah, bringing it in here now, like they did talk about, it was implied that the pregnancy was part of her game, and that they knew this would be the ending. Oh no, never mind. That's those last 2 points I have are about other points in the episode. Never mind. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that she's actually absolutely capable of lying, but I'm in Steven's court on this. Just because you're a terrible person, there's a phrase I'm trying to think of, but I can't remember what movie it's from or what the full phrase is. But just because you're a terrible person and you get pregnant or you have some life-altering thing, it doesn't erase the sins of the past. It just makes it another thing to consider, but that shouldn't immediately change who you are as a person. Terrible people have kids all the time.
Yeah.
More to that thought. But Tyler?
Does it even kind of tie into how we talked about Catelyn Stark way at the beginning and about her treatment towards Jon Snow?
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
She was terrible
Good-
towards him,
good
and then
comparison.
kind of felt bad at the end. But then it's just like,
Good
she was
comparison.
still a terrible person there. Like that doesn't
Yep.
erase that.
Comparison. People trying to do what they feel is right, but it's not, any message is not just how it's being sent, it's how it's being received. And so it's not just in the eye of, let's say, the eye of the beholder. I had a question there about when Tyrion, you had talked earlier, Tyler, about how Tyrion and Cersei are talking about, she knows herself. She got a hand who can check her worst impulses. And I was surprised that I, of all people, came up with this conversation because this is actually pretty deep thought that I didn't really intend to, but I'm going to pose to you all. The difference between Dany and Cersei, Tyrion said he believes that she can make the world a better place. My question to all of you is, at least in the world of Game of Thrones, does antagonistic debate breed civility? Major
No.
reactions, no. But politicking aside, do we think that's possible? Is it in everyone's interest to have someone who checks their worst impulses? Because we've seen a trend that it doesn't. Why do we think Tyrion may feel this way?
So
Fingers, go for it.
I think we have two competing things here, and that's what would happen in reality and what would happen in Game of Thrones. And
Right.
in reality, yes, having someone there to check your worst impulses, and even antagonistic debate, you need that. You need that real truth being talked to you. I don't think it works in Game of Thrones that same way because they want the characters to be how the characters are, especially in the later seasons. You're not going to change their mind from how they want to. If they want to be a horrible human being, they're going to be a horrible human being. There's no talking them out of that. So when you have, say, Tyrion trying to check the worst impulses of Daenerys, or if you have anyone trying to talk to Cersei at all, it's not going to help. You either have a benevolent ruler to begin with, or you have a crazy ruler to begin with. There is no moderation really between those.
Fair.
think that's an actually excellent question, Nick. I really, really like it because it's making me think of all sorts of things. But to try to keep it more concise, I think it certainly helps to have someone that will argue with you. I'm leaning towards thinking the more important thing is that they'll speak truth to you honestly. If I want to beat Stephen to the history part, I remember when Queen Elizabeth I came to her throne, her biggest advisor, there's Gary's Boo history card. Her biggest
And it wasn't
advisor,
me.
she made him swear an oath that he would always give her the truth, no matter without fear or favor. And I think that would be more important because the thing is, there are going to be times where everyone agrees and everyone's clear on what the path is, but you need that to be the second everyone agrees with you, everything. There's really no point in having a council.
Right.
I do, however, thought it was interesting that Tyrion said, even out loud to himself, that he's there to check her worst impulses, so he believes she's got pretty bad impulses.
Good catch. I didn't think of that at all. Yeah. She knows herself, maybe because she knows she has dark impulses, and so she wants someone to check those for her. Nice.
Go ahead,
Counterpoint.
Gary.
Mr. Gary.
Unlike everyone else, I don't think it was a good question that Nick had. Anyway, uh,
Well, we're shocked.
Gary with antagonistic debate. I
There
appreciate
we
it.
go.
Go for it, Gary.
See?
As for Tyrion's value, I would say that he thinks he's valuable for that. I don't think the way Tyrion sees himself as the hand of the king and being this, like, speaking truth to power is really how Daenerys sees Tyrion. Like, I think Daenerys just sees him as someone who knows Westeros and who knows the political geography of Westeros, and not necessarily as someone who will speak truth to her crazy. I think Daenerys is just going to be crazy because she thinks that's her right.
That was originally how he pitched himself to her, as if you're going to attack all these new kings and lords, you need someone who's familiar with all these kings and lords. Interesting.
Anyway, Steven.
So I
Prove me
think that
wrong.
also I think also you have to understand that Daenerys is a lot of things, and a bad public speaker is the least of those things that she is not.
For that.
And what that entails is being able to
That's a
sweet talk
double
people.
negative.
It is. I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I immediately was trying to work it out. In my head.
I know. I'm sorry, but
So you meant she was a good public speaker?
she is. She's a great
Okay.
public speaker. And one of that entails is she is able to sweet talk people in private. And this is what she's doing, I think, with Tyrion. I don't think we keep saying, "Oh, well, she said you're there to check my worst impulses." What do you think Tyrion wants to be told? That he has this value in checking her worst impulses. How many worst real impulses has she checked, really, except for the burning of King's Landing? I can't think of one. And yeah, burning of King's Landing, that would be bad. Don't get me wrong. But it's a very limited influence that he has had. And I believe that she is sweet talking Tyrion. I think that she is playing the master, playing the player at that point in time.
Stephen, I would have to disagree with that. That she's never had to check her impulses. She has definitely done things, but there's other times, like specifically when she was at Marine, that it would have been easier if she just burned down all the masters immediately. It would have been easier if she had just moved on, sacked the city and moved on. Like, she specifically did make some choices. I won't say that she's checked all of them that by any means, but I think it's too far to say that she's never checked any of them.
I was going to say, for his attempts, Tyrion had tried to save the Tarleys. So, again, there's not many.
Work out?
There's not many.
How did that work out?
Sort of okay. There's still one Tarley. She didn't
There's
get them
still
all.
a Tarley.
Does she know that? Don't tell her he's alive.
Hide him!
Jorah told her. We're good. Jorah went back to her. He tells her everything, right? He's always told her his history.
All right. Did you have anything else, really? I guess, Stephen. I think that all originally originated from you.
Yeah,
Yes,
it did.
no problem.
And so I guess I don't know. There are some major individual scenes here that we should probably talk about as individual scenes. So it's hard for me to really pick out other things. Maybe the last one would be I was about to say Reek almost, and it's not. What's his name?
John
Theon?
Greyjoy.
Theon?
Theon. Thank you, Theon. Theon goes back to the Iron Islands and earns the respect of his fellow people by having the crap kicked out of him.
He goes to
And
Dragonstone. He's not. He's
oh,
not back
is
in
it?
the Iron
Yeah,
Islands.
they're
Whatever.
leaving
Seemed like he was going to go
Dragonstone.
catch them. They were
They're
headed
head.
maybe for somewhere else.
He's talking to his people. Sorry. But he's talking to his people, and he earns their respect by getting the crap kicked out of him. And
Yeah,
then
owned count.
and then using the magic of willpower, kicking the crap out of one of them as well. And I don't know, that felt forced to me, and I didn't particularly care for it. Do you guys think that was a good scene, or that was a redeeming moment for Theon?
So
Tyler.
maybe the way the scene was done was poor, but I think Theon's been the character I think we've talked about kind of off and on. Like everything he's in, we've had something to say about him because he went from being this really kind of terrible person or like snotty person there basically when he was with the Starks, to then betraying the Starks, then getting captured, tortured, redeeming himself somewhat by saving Sansa. So this is like Theon's character arc kind of coming back full circle, where now he is accepting, he's trying to put his past behind him as best he can of the torture and all of that stuff, and step up into being a courageous person to go rescue the one person that always stood up for him and his sister. The way it was done though is kind of terrible because they kind of like this. I think I mentioned this a while ago. This show starts to fall a lot into like the dick joke territory. Like it's not quite what you meant there, Nick, at the beginning, but like at the beginning there, Jamie and Braun have the conversation about dicks. Basically, maybe dicks are behind everything or cocks are behind everything in the end here. Well, here it's like the whole reason Theon is able to turn the tides of this battle is because he doesn't have his favorite piece anymore. So the guy just keeps hitting him there, and it doesn't affect him. So then Theon just turns the tide, wins the fights, which is kind of like the thought. Like I said, the thought behind Theon redeeming himself, kind of breaking free somewhat of his past and all that stuff is good. The way it is executed, though, is poor. I think Gary was up next here.
I think that it's supposed to be a real cheap redemption arc for him. For Theon, that like he originally kind of tried to redeem himself, and now it's him trying to redeem himself again to be like, I wussed out, I have to own that, and now I'm gonna try to convince these people. And I think the guy who he beats up as an antagonist in a previous episode, and I think it's a character building BS that he has to talk to Jon before that. Like, I think it's honestly comes down to poor writing, where they needed to get Theon's character from Reek to Prince of the back to being the prince or the lieutenant of the Iron Islands, and they just had to like sew together some BS scenes to get him there. Like, I don't think he's really gonna matter in the wars to come. They just needed to get him between A and B to get him to the end of the plot.
Dang.
Nick, I see you
some
sneering.
shade on Theon over there. I agree. He's not the greatest character to rally behind, but I just got some high moments there, and it's not just from the Battle of the Bastards, from Reek to this. Like he's got a couple little moments there where he helps Yara. He helps rally the troops behind Yara that leave the Iron Islands when Euron's getting crowned the new king. Anywho, I agree with you all. The way that scene was handled was very poor. I think that at the end of that, a lot of the characters near the boats would still be like, F you, we're still not going to go fight these dead people. We're going to leave. But the fact that they're like, for Yara, and they rally behind him is kind of poor. But the fact that he goes down and confronts them is what I thought was the redeeming arc. Because he does have that scene right before with Jon. I wouldn't call it BS, because Jon hasn't really had a moment where he's been able to confront Theon, aside from where he beat him up himself on a beach. Theon just needs to stay away from beaches. He doesn't beat him up, he like threatens to beat him up. Thank you. So he like threatens to. So yeah, he just needs, for being a person who loves the water, he needs to stay the heck away from beaches. But there's that scene and that confrontation, but they don't really talk it out afterwards. And so for Theon to give the credit to Jon, we'd have to go back to like season 1, but there's a scene there, I think, in my head where Theon is kind of like, you know, just sleeping with whatever whores there are at the Winterfell. And kind of feels like he can do whatever he wants, and Jon is the pet. He's like, oh, the smallest run to the litter. That one's yours, Snow. When he's passing out direwolves like they're candy. And it's just like Jon is seen as less than Theon. And technically, Theon isn't really that stable a position either. He's the ward under Ned Stark. But this reversal clearly shows that the choices Theon thought he was secure in making as the right choices. He says he always had the difficult, impossible decision, when the difficult, impossible decision is to choose the right thing, even when it's the terribly worst thing to do, politicking-wise. So I thought it was a cool reversal, and that scene showed more power that Theon was crediting towards Jon, but Jon, still being the most humble mother trucker in all of Westeros, ends it with, you can be Greyjoy and Stark. Then says, what are you doing here? And leaves, go get Yara. And he's like, I will! And then promptly goes to get his face smashed in. So it's the fact that he goes and tries to do the right thing like Jon that I thought was the redemption part of it. The way it happened was poor, but he's trying. Theon, hashtag, he's trying.
He's trying.
He's trying. Tyler.
So I will join the crowd and disagree with Gary here, as we love to do here. The scene with Jon was excellent because it was kind of like the forgiveness that Theon was looking for from the Stark side of the family there that he never got really from Sansa. And also too, we talked about this a lot, especially in the earlier parts with Theon, of Theon always trying to make a choice, but he never ever makes the right choice there really. And he's holding Jon up on this pinnacle as he felt Jon always made the right choice, but Jon is just like, I just did what I thought was right at the time there. That doesn't make it right or wrong. It may look like that in hindsight or something like that, he says. But it's hard and difficult at the time to choose what is right. So Gary, you look like you were just itching to respond here to something.
Listen to him.
Conspiracy theory number 1.
Oh dear God.
Theon has met almost every Stark since he became a traitor, except for Arya. Because if Arya found him, he'd be faceless.
Dead.
Yes, and that would be one more face.
Gary,
So,
I think
that's my
that is the most
conspiracy-
likely of all your conspiracy theories ever.
Conspiracy theory 2.
I don't think that's
Theon
called a
actually
conspiracy.
is Arya.
Dun dun dun.
I don't think that's a conspiracy theory, Gary. That's just an observation.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
That's just Gary used to labeling everything he thinks as conspiracy theories.
Well, Nick said number 2, so we had 3 in the count, or are we going back to 1?
I mean, I don't pay attention to your counting anyways, so I mean, you
No,
do
we
what you
don't
want
go.
to do.
We don't go back. We go forward only.
We don't go
Gary.
back. We only move forward.
I'll only go forward.
Anyway, whatever you call it, isn't it interesting that he's never ran into Arya? Because Arya is the one person who would not effing forgive him. Like, she's about vengeance. She's about crossing people off the list. And the only reason Theon isn't on the list is because it's kind of implied that she doesn't know what happened to her brothers.
Conspiracy theory number 4. That if Arya actually met Theon, she would have no idea what happened, and he'd get away scot-free.
Okay,
But
I just
back to you.
I don't know where the hell
I'm
we're
keeping
going.
track of my conspiracy theories on the market board, so I know which one I'm on. We skipped 3 completely, and I think that's a conspiracy. So we're up
for
to
all the
4.
listeners at home that didn't hear, that we had a discussion before we started this, Gary now has a whiteboard.
And it's being used to great purpose.
Yes, I have no real great purpose for it.
All right, I think we could now circle back to you, Steven. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on?
No, there are 2 singular events in this that I want to talk about, but I believe we should talk about both events as singular events and not as individual points.
I do want to touch on a brief point that I just kind of chuckled at when I rewatching it. The scene in the fighting pit when John is talking to Danny, and Danny's like, "I can't have kids anymore." And John's basically like, "Oh, you want to bet?" That's how I took it there. So it's just like,
Wow, 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 wow.
I was just like,
Maybe you
thank
just didn't
you,
meet
John.
the right lord.
Thank you, John, for somebody finally being like, let's think about our source material here. Think
Yep.
if like Catelyn Stark had done that in season 1. Like, what would have happened when she talked to Littlefinger? Like, let's consider a little more and look into this a little bit. Whereas Dany literally took for granted something someone who hated her told her.
Mm-hmm. To be fair,
Conspiracy.
didn't say she's supposed to be like what, 15, 16?
That's true.
Also, I want to point out that she has had multiple lovers, so
Conspiracy theory number 5. Tyrion and Daenerys have been knocking boots on the whole boat ride over.
oh my
So that's
god.
why
Oh
she
my.
knows that she can't get pregnant.
yeah,
Is
no,
this one
we're
on the
just
whiteboard?
completely
Tyrion's a lady lover.
just
Oh
poke
my
holes in
God.
this thing and kill it while we can.
Can we not,
You
can we not
know-
reference that with
Cersei
poking
does-
holes, Tyler?
Cersei does highlight that, she's his kind of woman.
You know, Gary,
Oh
it's
my
interesting.
gosh.
Until you just said that, I hadn't considered the fact that Tyrion even made jokes to his own sister Cersei about like, well, go ahead, I'm willing, like all these jokes about how he was totally willing with any woman, and then he has never done that to Daenerys.
Conspiracy theory number 6.
Oh
They
no.
cut to Tyrion during the boat scene. They cut to him and he looks sad and depressed. Like he lost his sugar mama.
I did have this note as well later on. We're jumping all over the place. But I think that there's like just this aura around her where like every guy sees her seems to fall in love with her. Because we had this comment in the last episode where they referenced Dario Naharis, John, and somebody, Khal Drogo were all people who had fallen in love with her. It's like she says something to the kin of like they're all warriors and I hate warriors. They're all fighters or something. And it's like, well, interesting. All those people actually also fell in love with you. So maybe there's that whole thing that Tyrion, not necessarily that he's a mighty warrior, but just like everyone in her orbit seems to get pulled in as they find her appealing, attractive, something. I don't know.
I want to point out that yes, she is 15 in the books, and it is really weird to me that all these really old men are like, that 14-year-old's hot.
I could probably speak more to this with the history side of it, but I'm sure that's probably what happened.
I know.
And I'm sure though at
Not
this
condoning,
point in time though,
not condoning internet.
Yes. At this point in time though, if the books were to be caught up with the show, she would definitely be at least 18 by about now, wouldn't she be? We're just gonna assume.
Don't know. I'm so confused on the timeline. If I understand travel at the same time. Cersei pops in and out of the dragon pit like within 20 minutes, it feels like. I would think that would take an hour across the city.
Tyrion walks to get her from the dragon pit.
And they walks back and they wait for him. So I mean, I would be annoyed about sitting in that very uncomfortable looking area for hours on end. But they act like he just popped 15 minutes over. Right? They showed us her walking from the Great Sept to the palace, and it was not a short walk. Why do they think the dragon pit's just 10 minutes down the road?
How many? I think you can count how many shames there are between the two places. I think it's 4 minutes.
Of a shame?
4 minutes and like
Oh, okay.
Like,
So it's only a 4-minute walk. We're fine.
I actually have one more point before we move on from me, and that's a question that you guys talking just made me think of it. What happened to the people of I was about to say Casterly Rock. Where the hell are they right now?
Landing?
keep
Thank you.
King's
What
Landing.
the hell happened to the people of King's Landing that now everyone's able to walk everywhere, unmolested? There's no threat of anyone getting jumped, getting beaten and raped, like what happened in the books. Joffrey
Again,
getting attacked. None
Wonder
of
what
this
the-
is a thing anymore.
people who know the books better than I can speak to a little bit of that. But I do believe that the dragon pit's original placement was up on a hill, and again, it's where they kept the dragon, so it's kind of meant to be away from the majority of people in town. So I think it's a less traveled area,
Mhm.
and it may have, correct me here with book people, but it may have also been kind of foreseen as like it's haunted or foreboding, because since they burned it down, that's like the dragon's ghosts or the people who died there, perished there. It's like it's a bad juju place.
Yeah, that place is kind of slightly abandoned, I think. And I can understand that. I do kind of wonder what the population of King's Landing
Yeah,
thought when the dragons flew in. There's no way no one did not notice that. You had to have seen those things
there
from
were
parts of the
armies
town.
outside the gates.
I'm sorry, I would have heard the dragon and I would have looked up.
Well, there. All right, so I just pulled up a map of King's Landing, and
There you go.
you have to. I am pretty sure you'd have to
Google Maps
walk.
it for me, Stephen. What's the walking distance from the Red Keep to the Dragon Pit? Like,
Sir, it didn't
are we
happen.
talking a marathon? Are we talking a 5K? What are we thinking?
It's
Oh,
54 walks of shame.
It's
I don't
enough
know.
to
I'm
get your feet bloody and bleeding. That's true. But on the other hand, it's not exactly like it's perfectly. It's not exactly asphalt roads.
so I'm sure you could actually find it, but no, on from what I am seeing at least, you still have to walk through several residential areas to be able to get back. I'm trying to find like maybe there isn't a real map of King's Landing. Although TripAdvisor wants to give me an ad for it, so hey.
Travel. Travel to King's Landing. Come for the dragons. Stay for the death.
Like there, yeah, no, it's off to so in King's Landing you have the Red Keep, which is off on like rocks and crap like that, and you have the Dragon Pits, but the Dragon Pits is on the opposite side, inside the walls of the city, with lots of housing in between the Red Keep and the Dragon Pits. It's
Eh.
no, the people of King's Landing played such an important role in this book series and in this show for such a long time, and they have entirely disappeared now. You could have a ghost of a city and no one would ever know. It's a major player that's just written out because I don't know if they just don't want to think about it, but it's adds complications to everything, and those complications don't exist now. You can just walk from one to the other.
How many people live in King's Landing? 1 million, give or take.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Jeff.
gotta be 1 million because Jamie mentions at one point that he saved 500,000.
And I think Tyrion does mention it on the boat ride into the harbor with Jon there.
I don't think
The
you're
brothels
right,
are superior, for sure.
You're good now, Stephen.
Yes, I am good now.
Okay. Amanda, what do you got?
Let's swing over. Trying to make sure I get all my notes here. Well, we've kind of done that area a lot, so let's swing over to north to Winterfell. Sansa and Arya and Littlefinger. We have Nick's full attention. The first time I was watching this part, I forget how much is in this episode. There's so many big things happening. I couldn't remember if we would see what happens with Littlefinger in this one or not, but we do. So I can luckily say all this without giving away spoilers. This little thing interesting. When Littlefinger's walking her through his little exercise about that little game he plays to try to understand people's motives, she's completely deadpan through it. Even talking about her possibly getting killed, even talking about why Arya could be there. The only time she like reacts or looks up or looks startled was when Littlefinger asks what Arya would become, Lady of Winterfell. Normally this would be motive for anybody, and Sansa doesn't know Arya anymore, but it was always clear that Arya didn't want to be a lady even after she came back. Is Sansa actually convinced by this last bit of Littlefinger's logic, or is this where she realized maybe something was up? Because that's the only time she actually reacted. Like I wonder. I wonder if that's. I've always wondered where they figured out something was up. Go ahead, Gary. Regale us.
I would say that everything that he's saying makes sense of like, oh, well, you don't really know your sister. She seems like she could have kind of a violent streak. And then it was like, I think she might be trying to usurp you to become the Lady of Winterfell. And everyone would just, I think in anyone's mind, you just stop and kind of look around and be like, has he never met her? Like, she has no interest in being a lady. Like, that's not, like, at the very base level, like, it would take a lot to change her from who she was in season 1 to, like, I want to be the Lady of Winterfell. Like, that is not her motivation at all. So that, I thought was, I don't know, this episode confused me in so many ways between that early scene and the late scene of, like, was this something that was building up? And like for a while, did Bran like tell them all this backstory of all the shady shit he's done? Like it's one more thing in this episode where it's like it didn't really make good story, but they needed to get from A to B. I think Littlefinger just needed to die. I don't know.
Yeah.
My opinion. Poor writing. Nick, you're up.
I I like the thought about where does the understanding for the character come from. I like that angle on the question. I flip flopped. Like going back, I think I'd commented that the whole pregnancy scare with Cersei. I think at first I thought that was maybe false, but like I believed it on this rewatch. Whereas with this scene, I was probably a bit more bought into the fact that, oh crap, is she actually going to try and oust Arya somehow? And on a rewatch, it felt more falsified to me. But I like the thought of when did that understanding come through that it was false, and that might have been it, because going back and thinking on that sentence, she knows that Arya never wanted to be a lady, or that she was always thought of herself more as somebody different or more of a tomboy type character. And so the fact that at that moment when she's playing this little game with him and she says the words out loud, oh, she wants to kill me. She wants to get rid of me. Why? To become Lady of Winterfell. That might have been the light bulb moment of like, hold up, really? And then maybe, just went and talked to her sister or asked Bran to see behind the curtain a little bit and see what's going on. It's not in this scene, but we do hear later on the two sisters have an exchange on the top of the wall where Arya says to Sansa, I never could have survived what you went through. And so we never see them have that dialogue. So at some point, the sisters do have a full disclosure of what each other has suffered. So maybe that happens off camera in that scene, and that's where they get that understanding of, yeah, no, I'm totally not trying to be Lady of Winterfell. I'm just trying to scare you because I think you're after Jon. I'm not after Jon. Oh, okay. Well, then we're good. Well, who's the rat who's trying to screw us over? And they both go after Littlefinger. I think that might be part of that understanding in that moment, if not the epiphany, perhaps the start of the unraveling. So, really good question.
Nick talked so long, I forgot what I was thinking about. Amanda.
It's been 84 years.
Gosh, now I'm blanking on what I was thinking of. No, I would have. I loved this twist. I would have loved it a lot more had I been able to see what happened, even if they did it in flashbacks or something. Like, I'm just taking it for their word that obviously it had to, but I always wanted to know. And this was the first time I noticed that little reaction at the end. She didn't react at the thought of someone killing her. She's endured that kind of stuff before, but it wasn't until the end where she was like, that doesn't actually make logical sense. So that's my best guess of when the show is trying to imply that, because while she can argue to herself she doesn't know Arya anymore, I think it's still pretty clear that Arya is no one's idea of a lady, even to herself. Like, Arya doesn't want that. Arya might want to kill her, but Arya does not wish to be the Lady of Winterfell. Go ahead, Tyler.
So I don't remember if I talked about this off recording for last episode, or if I talked about it a little bit last episode, but supposedly this is where, like, somewhere in between this episode and the last episode is the supposed deleted scene that nobody ever got to see, where one of the sisters goes and talks to Bran about what's going on, and Bran just basically straight up says, "Yeah, your Littlefinger's playing you," or whatever.
Yep.
Nobody ever saw this scene here. But then
I wish they'd put it in.
yeah, I completely agree. I wish the show had put something in there, though, that, like you said, as a flashback, even of just like them two finally talking to one another and having a discussion about what's going on. Because then they try to play it off of like, oh, well, Sansa listened to Littlefinger, but then played his game against him there of like, what's the worst thing somebody could be trying to do to me right now? Oh, Littlefinger trying to manipulate me and my sister to get back at one another. So it's just like, yeah, you guys are kind of. I think this goes back to what we talked about. I think this was the last episode, or maybe the one before, of like this whole plot line just kind of seems like something the show writers put in the show to kind of give these characters something to do. Does it make sense? Not really, but it's something to do to have conflict up in the north, keep these characters busy, and also eventually get rid of Littlefinger's character. May he rest in shit forever. Go ahead, Steven.
I also kind of wonder about the logic of everyone knowing at that gathering besides Littlefinger. Like, yeah, sure, two people can keep a secret. What is the thing? Three people can keep a secret if two are dead, I believe is the way of saying it. Yeah, but there's a lot of people that apparently are in the secret, because no one is surprised in that hall when she goes, "How do you answer for your crimes, Littlefinger?" And everyone's just like,
Littlefinger's supposed to have
Littlefinger's
so many
surprised.
spies and know everything.
Right? And
Playing games with everybody.
I'll be honest, even a moderately good spy would be able to get this information out of someone. Like, if everyone knew, it wouldn't be a big thing, or he would have already known. So that doesn't make sense to me. I would be, even if the two sisters somehow magically ESP'd between each other, it makes much less sense to me everyone else knowing as well. Gary.
I remembered my thought. Is the conflict a little more believable between the two sisters if you're not watching them back to back? Obviously, when we rewatch these, we've got a couple weeks between them, but I just think about like when it originally aired, that like you got to watch it 1 week and then you were kind of in suspense. You got to watch it the next week.
Dissect and overthink and overanalyze.
Yeah, so that you didn't have as much time to be like, this is real. Like, these strings really aren't that well put together. You're just like, oh, cool. Like, that's what all this was leading to, like Littlefinger had to die. Like, and so maybe on like a little more analytical, like it doesn't really hold up. Or if you're watching it all in a marathon pace, it definitely doesn't probably hold up.
It's fresher in your mind. I can get behind that, Gary. I agree with Gary.
Counting it.
I do think, like I said on this rewatch, that I thought this story arc didn't hold as much water as it did the first time I saw it. The first time I saw it, I was more concerned, like, what's going to happen? And I did kind of feel a little bit like the rug was pulled out from under me when they say, how do you react to the charges, Baelish? And it's like, oh my gosh, whoa, what a twist.
What a twist.
What a twist. But Yeah, I think seeing them back to back or at a marathon pace, like Gary commented, is a little different because you have that so fresh in your mind about. Well, hold up, they had this little nuanced smile that I just saw two days ago. Whereas trying to remember what you did or may have seen last week or something like that might have thrown it off. Interesting. I did have a note on that the whole scene where it played out as Baelish just gets more and more frantic was really well done. I liked that. A character for all his politicking, all his subterfuge and sneakiness. In the end, he's just begging on his knees, please, please don't do this. And
Why you don't? Oh,
he even
sorry.
glances at Arya, like knowing she's going to be the executioner to do it too. Like it's coming.
Why you don't put all your points into deception, because then when you get to that confrontation where you actually have to use something else, you're screwed.
You roll bluff
Steven,
and
I
got a
just
negative
sorry,
one.
Steven, I completely disagree with you. Always all your points in charisma. Like
Charisma.
you can talk your way out of anything.
Put all your points in charisma, you end up with Jamie. There's nothing below the surface when you look at actually what he says.
Also, he's a badass warrior. Like, I don't know. I'm a big fan of charisma. You should be able to talk your way out of anything in RPG. Anyway, sorry for interrupting. Going to Amanda.
Another interesting thing about that scene, while I was very happy to see Littlefinger dispatched to his rightly deserved end, I thought it was interesting that Sansa, they're of the North, and their way is the old way. The man who gives the sentence should swing the
Oh,
sword. They did not do that. Also, Sansa didn't even actually say the words. Even in her conversation with Arya later, Arya even tries to kind of let her off the hook. She's like, "Hey, I only swung the sword. You passed the sentence." She didn't though. She didn't actually say the
She
sentence.
she just looked at her and gave her a nod. She
Yeah,
actually
like
meant scare him so he runs away,
I
and
was
then was
like,
like, "Oh crap."
in any formal court or any kind of hearing, you should still say the words, "Yes, kill him." Don't just be like, don't leave that ambiguity in there of like, "Oh, I wasn't actually going to go there." Because not
Ted
only what
said, "Off with his head."
right, the Starks always believe that. Ned Stark said it all the time. I feel I'm kind of leaning towards thinking that scene was done for the audience just to make us satisfied, but it
A little
could
bit.
be that Sansa and Arya are learning certain things about their family don't really work all the time. Except for I think Sansa could have just said the words and formally done it. She probably couldn't have swung a sword, but I don't know. Sansa's come far.
Sansa fed a guy to dogs. I
That's true.
I am
She did
100% certain Sansa would swing a sword to kill Baelish.
I don't know. Again, hey guards, tie him up in a chair, close the gate, and I'll stand there threateningly from the outside and make snarky remarks. Did she really feed a guy to the chairs,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
to
to the
the chairs?
chairs.
Feed him to the dogs, or did
Those
she just
horrible
give the
man-eating
order
chairs.
those
Like
just
wild
like
oak
this?
chairs.
Give the order and then stand to the side.
I mean, if
No, she
she's
definitely did.
acting in John's name, she should at the very least do what Ned did in the very beginning episode and say, like, I, Sansa of the House Stark, in the name of the King in the North, Jon Snow or whatever, pass the sentence on you to
Honestly,
die.
honestly, the scene would have had so much more poignance if she had
Ooh,
said that, and then Sansa
see?
just comes up and that would
See,
have been cool.
I should be the screenwriter, guys.
Did
There
you
we
just
go.
indicate Sansa coming up and doing the dab motion there, Steven?
Yeah. Now, I do wonder if that was something done for the audience or if they're saying that Sansa and Arya have moved beyond quite being the same Starks their family was for so many generations. I don't know.
Interesting.
All right. Amanda, did you have anything else you wish to discuss for the episode?
One last thing with Sansa, she does mention that quick little thing about Jon. She says he never asked my opinion before. She's right, unfortunately. Jon kind of forgets what it's like to be left behind with no word, and he of all of the siblings should definitely know what that's like. I know he's busy, but he should remember he's got people back there that are dealing with things too. Which is weird because the rest of the time he's actually pretty good about helping people that he knows are just kind of stuck somewhere.
We say that John has great intention and very poor short-term memory.
I mean, we really
Not
should sail together.
usually.
We have to
I
sail
feel like
together.
We have to sail together. Wink.
Wink. Remember when we had that conversation in the Dragon Pit? We should sail together.
I got a couple random other things, but I'll see what you guys say. What wise points do you have?
Wise.
That's like the Scooby Doo. All right, Velma, you and the dog go over this way. Daphne and I are gonna go wander over here. It always wanders off with Daphne. Just saying.
All right, Nick, your turn. What do you
Do
know?
me. We've talked about a lot of the points I have, but I wanted to highlight a little bit of the brotherly, sisterly love fallout between the Lannisters towards the end of this episode.
I thought this was fan-fucking-tastic. It was a long time
Mhm.
coming, too.
I
It is a
entirely
long
agree.
time coming. It is a long time coming. So at the very end there, Tyrion walks back with a smug face. I had a question earlier about, do we trust that Cersei says, we'll stand down, we'll make this truce with you, after she walked off? Because we don't get to hear the end of the amazing conversation that Tyrion has with Cersei. You know, that Tyrion, we find out, is beguiled and falls for the fact that Cersei says, we'll send our troops north and join you to fight the real one true fight in the north. And instead, Jaime starts making battle plans. He's like, all right, let's do this. We're going to be the heroes, help out. This is good. We'll fight the one true enemy. And all of a sudden, Cersei's kind of like smug, walks up behind him and is like, we're not doing that. F those guys. We'll fight who's ever left. She goes off the deep end. I really didn't have a question here, save for the fact that I thought this was kind of like the eye-opener for Jaime. Because we were joking a little bit earlier on that she's the murder hobo behind all murderous schemes. However, like, this is the eye opener for Jaime that she's lost it, because she's like, we'll just rule whatever's left. It's like there will be nothing left. Jaime has the great line about, whoever, if we betray the living and the living survive, they'll come down and kill us. And if the dead survive, they'll come down and kill us. Like, there's no way we survive this if we don't hold to our word. Because Jaime, to Amanda's point about, are they still their family houses or are they evolved beyond that? Jaime still sees some honor in keeping your word, which is why I made the opening intro about when people make enough false promises, words don't mean anything anymore, which was John's great one-liner. Why I chose that one-liner. Because this scene ends with Jaime saying, F this, I'm kind of done. And not once, but twice, Cersei threatens to kill her brothers at the hand of the mountain. And both call her bluff. What do we think about this? Is Cersei finally out of...
Both of them called it her bluff.
They both did. Is Cersei finally out of allies? Have people finally realized what a terrible person she is, do we think? Or do we think family is stronger than the realization of truth?
I think that she's not necessarily out of allies. I am not sure that if Jaime was called upon to fight for her, that he would not go back willingly to her. That being said, I think she's out of goodwill. She's lost any sort of trust from any sort of person, and all these other people are seeing that to accomplish what needs to be done, they have to leave Cersei. However that means, you have to not be around Cersei or not be enthralled to Cersei to have what you believe needs to be done. Tyler?
Sorry, there. I was trying to not sneeze while trying to sneeze at
It's
the same
all
time there. Yeah, I don't think she's necessarily out of allies completely there. Just more probably like her confidants pool has now basically shrunk to one person. It's down from 2 to 1.
It's down from 3 to 2.
Boo. I'm not sure that baby even trusts her. I wouldn't trust her if it was my mom. Are you kidding?
Her kids didn't trust
It-
her.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. Any mother who could let their child walk out of a window and just be like, happens. Yeah, maybe not the best.
Maybe Tommen's trust in his mom was. That's a joke there I'm trying to make, but I can't find it.
Yeah,
Something
he's
about
running
coming out of
towards
thin
a
air.
bad pun, but
his
he's not
trust
there
end up
yet.
flattening him.
Yeah, he fell
Boo.
flat on his face.
Boo. Boo, boo, boo.
Let's keep this show rolling, Nick. What else you got to talk about?
To myself out. That one and something not so much a question, but something I may have missed on the first run here. The one-liner that Cersei throws out in that exchange to Jaime that Euron didn't actually leave, like that was all a plan the whole time.
Yeah.
I didn't catch that the first time. I thought that like he just was planning to leave and his ships were like gonna start sailing away. I thought he legit was like, nope, screw you guys, I'm out.
What a twist.
What a twist.
So yeah, I remember that from the first time, but I wanted to call out one other thing that then happened in the fighting pit, where Euron asked, "Can they swim?" No. So the last episode where they're in the lake,
I thought that too, yeah.
dragging the dragon
Right.
out there.
Mhm.
How did that work? Did they
They
just,
just sink to the bottom because they're holding the chains, and then they just like climb the chains. Is
Or
that
they just
climbing
left them
underwater
there.
swimming?
Or they left him there. I don't think the White Walkers would have cared about the loss of a few.
Can you hang on to the dragon as the dragon's being pulled out and then get back up that way?
That's
You
too
can stay
hard.
under as long as you want. You're already dead. They don't need the air.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no to swimming except for those two random ones, except for that also came out of the ice after those guys. That one made me wonder as well.
I
When they
did
were
think it
on
was
that little
odd.
island.
I did think it was odd when Euron walks over to the corpse of the body and he's like, "Can they swim?" Of anywhere not creepy to touch it, he like twirls and plays with the dead man's hair. I was just
Because
like,
they're trying to make him eccentric. They're trying so hard to make him eccentric.
it's like, holy crap, this is a dead person. Like his arms or like a small of his back. Like, oh yuck. But he like twirls his little hair, makes a braid or something, and he's like, "Can they swim?" This was odd to me. It's like, what are you doing, you strange man? So I had those comments we talked about a bunch already, and then the last one I had was the reveal. Do we want to get there at the end? I say reveal with quotes about the who's John's parentage is.
Absolutely.
We know whose John's parentage is. It's just now the reveal of what the actual relationship between the two was.
That's true.
Incest is the best. Put your cousin to the test.
Wow.
What?
What?
You haven't heard that before?
Steven, we were talking about their parentage, not what he and Daenerys are up to.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about him and Daenerys personally.
Yeah, I know. You skipped ahead.
I skipped ahead. I apologize.
So anywho, yes, the reveal when Sam comes to Winterfell and just happens to walk in, talk to Bran a little bit, and then like their first 5 conversations, they supposedly dropped the biggest reveal about who Jon actually is and put the pieces together, because we had that previous scene where Sam, again, like we're talking about, where Gilly had made some offhanded comment. It was Gilly who had discerned that about, oh, look at this, there's some diary that some archmaester had actually annulled some Rhaegar, like she mispronounces his name, and then Sam like blew up about some unrelated thing about the Citadel. Wasn't even that Sam was reading it, but like somehow that one little tidbit is what he recalled in that moment. Again, the difference between watching these things back to back to back, and then that Bran is able to like jump himself into that timeline and see that take place, and the two of them figure out that yes, he was actually a bastard from Dorne, not from the North, but it turns out they were actually married in this secret marriage, and so it annuls his bastardage. Bastardage? Is that a word? It actually makes him bastardy.
Bran had him pegged as being a bastard from the south instead of the north.
Correct.
But then that's where Sam corrects him, like, the marriage there or whatever. So the Bran goes back in time to confirm that, oh yeah, they were married in secret and stuff like that. He's really Aegon Targaryen the sixth or whatever.
The aforementioned hereto thereafter named as Bastard E will be indemnified from any such title requiring lower social status, and instead hereto be renamed after as Aegon, sixth of his name.
You could just be done.
Come on, that was pretty good for just throwing it out there.
That was very good. It sounded very perfect.
Ah! Beyond,
Um,
hashtag he's trying.
I did have a note I wrote down that bothered me when Bran was saying, "Oh, John's last name should actually be Sand." I'm sorry. Is it not known the world? The world knows John wasn't born in the North. I mean, I could be getting most of this knowledge from the books, but he was sent. His dad or Ned Stark was away from the North when John was conceived and born. They knew he wasn't of the North. I assumed he was given the name Snow because Ned Stark took him back, claimed him as his son, and Ned was of the North. Why?
Interesting.
I feel like that's kind of some kind of plot hole here or something's messed up here. They knew
It
that
could be-
John wasn't born in the North. Ned Stark wasn't in the North. Ned
It
Stark
could be that
wasn't even in the North when he married Catelyn. He married Catelyn at River Run and then went south to fight. So it
could
doesn't quite
be
make
that a
sense
number
to
of
me.
lords remember that he was there. But I mean, whatever the lords all went with or whatever they said is probably what the common folk would be told. So they could be
Okay.
like, "Oh crap! Hey, he's got a baby now." Yeah, he came from the north. I've always had this baby. La la la.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't think if you're born in another section of Westeros because your parents happen to be there for the time, that you're assumed to be belonging to like if Cersei had her kids in King's Landing, they're
That
still
would make no
considered.
sense.
Yeah, like if you had your kids in King's Landing, you're still considered to be like of the Starks of this. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. I thought maybe it was kind of a plot hole. I'm not sure. Also, I don't know if we're going here, but how did nobody know that Rhaegar didn't kidnap Lyanna?
I also had that, like, that you think there'd be some semblance of this story coming out, even if it was
Just like
disbelieved.
a single biggest on especially from Lyanna. Why wouldn't she start telling everyone? Her brother and her father literally got killed over this immediately. It wasn't even like delayed in fighting. Like this was pretty immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And you think the Star of the Morning or any of those sorts of people would
Would say
know this?
something.
Would say that.
Yeah.
Because
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, you know
It
they're up
feels-
there legally in bed together as man and wife, right? No, okay, all right, let's start killing each other.
Okay, that is legally like the future queen of the Seven Kingdoms. You're like, hey Ned, your sister is actually married to, the Prince of the Seven Kingdoms. Should just be cool. I understand this is gonna be an awkward family reunion, but we're not all bad. All Targaryens aren't bad people.
Yeah, we don't get some details ever. Like everyone everyone understands that Rhaegar took Lyanna. How? Where did this come from? And how did not a single person? Rumors fly fast. There had to have been somebody that was like, "Well, did she go with him
However-
willingly?"
However, could it be that, like, ultimately the reason for Robert's rebellion was the Mad King, was the inciting factor, but it was like that Rhaegar wasn't willing to, like, walk away from the throne, or he didn't think his dad was crazy?
Rhaegar kidnapping supposedly Lyanna was like the spark that started it, because then Brandon Stark and I don't remember their father's name, Rickard Stark, they went down to King's Landing to be like, give us our daughter back, and the Mad King like burned one of them alive, and
Burn both of them alive.
Both of them.
I thought one of them like choked as he was like trying to save the father or something. I think it was the Mad King had set up quite a little torture chamber for it, but
I think also part of that too was that Lyanna was betrothed to Robert.
yes,
Correct?
yes.
So yeah, maybe Robert, who was known for being drunk a lot in his angst of trying to get back Lyanna, was told a couple times, "Dude, she went willingly. No, she loves me." Just everybody's like, "All right, whatever, just go along with it." I don't know.
Right?
But you think that would cause some sort of divisions. I see where I entirely agree with where Amanda's coming from here. It's a major
Mhm.
plot hole. It's massive.
At the
It's
very
the
least,
controversy that doesn't need to be.
you would think Lyanna would want to say it as fast as possible, like that. You would think that Ned, maybe Robert Baratheon, the hothead, would easily be turned by that. But you would think that Ned Stark would. He didn't know the truth until he found her. She didn't write a
Yeah.
letter. No one found a way to get it to the Starks.
Well, that's true. A lot of ravens flying around during Robert's Rebellion. Maybe got
I don't know.
lost.
Someone saw Lyanna go with Rhaegar, but no one was told. I don't know. I think it's a plot hole. I'm
or
curious
even
for the book to come out for us to find out.
Oh,
even
I'm
the arch
sorry about that,
even
Amanda.
Someday the
even
books will come out.
No,
Someday.
no,
even the
no.
Hey.
Archmaester, right? I mean, if the Archmaester just proclaimed a new line for the throne, why would he write it in a private diary? Wouldn't he be like, "Hold up,
Right? Right? Like the importance of
I
it can't
just
be
crowned a
lost.
new person and annulled a royal marriage. Let me write this in a book no one will
Literally
ever
the heir to the
see."
throne. The importance of it can't be lost on. This would be extremely knowledgeable. Like every person, every citizen of Westeros would understand. Oh, this is the next king. His children will be the next. Like we.
Could you
I
imagine a
think it's a
family
plot hole.
line as Could you imagine a family line as prominent as like the Windsors and just be like, "Oh, hold up, by the way, Charles isn't actually in line for the throne."
Well,
just like mass chaos, right? We'll just tuck this away. No one will ever know. Maybe the Archmaester or whoever did it, whatever, was like, "This is something I'm going to put out. We'll have ravens everywhere." And they found out, oh crap, she dies in childbirth, and he's been murdered at the Battle of the Trident. And he was just like, "Tuck this away. No one will
Well,
know."
at least the Archmaester finished writing something, I guess.
okay, well, but
Ah!
here's one more thought too. Do we think that just the TV show got it wrong, and
I don't
that
know.
there is some sort of plot hole that will be fixed? And
I hope.
What do you? I guess what would you define as the plot hole in this then, Stephen?
yeah, so the plot hole being the entire confusion with if Lyanna was in fact not kidnapped, but went on her own volition, and there was a fair amount of people who actually knew this. Why wasn't it said, and all that sort of stuff? I hope the book has something clever or something smarter than this, and it could be something as trite as you had a similar situation to book one, where there was a war started because of Catelyn being an idiot and confused.
Truth.
Yeah, so like basically that boils down to of like if this event happened the way it was portrayed in the show, what happened to all the other people that knew about this?
Yes.
Yes, I can agree with that then too. It's like how some conspiracy theories unravel there of for something like this to have happened, enough people had to have known about it. Well, then why haven't somebody said something about it at some point in time? All right. Um, did we cover everything basically for that point there? Did anyone else have anything?
I guess the only other thing I'd say is I remember the lead up to this reveal happening and everyone freaking out online because there was I'm pretty sure a fair amount of the internet almost guessed it coming into this because of Reddit people are Reddit people, and this was a huge thing when it actually dropped, and it's almost in passing trite now how almost meaningless it is. It's not meaningless in an entire sense, but it's like we built there was so much of the show that built up to this one point in people's minds, and now on the rewatch you're just like, oh yeah, let's move on.
Wasn't this the one question that got the two Ds the ability to make this show?
Yeah, we covered
Like-
this at the end of season 6 there when it was revealed that John was Lyanna's kid there, and we all assume then it's Rhaegar there too. But again, going back to this is the reveal of how the nature of their relationship actually was. So yeah, I do agree. Like I remember too, this was a very big thing there too, and the internet had it basically figured out too that R plus L equals J. But now,
Mm-hmm.
how does R plus L equal J? Is the part that was revealed to us. Anything else from anyone? Are we kind of good at this point?
Yep.
Gary, you look like you're trying to talk here, but
No, I think we already covered it.
okay.
This should have been known by all.
Um, Nick, I think we were still on you. Are you good? Anything else?
The very end that I had was just the love boat connection.
Boat sex. As it's so adequately
Not
named
to-
on the internet.
Not to be that crass, but yes, that is what it is referred to as. Needed? Question mark? Thoughts?
No.
I thought
wasn't
I also had that note down of like, was this really needed, or was this like just for shock value?
Because we've had a couple
Like-
little bits where they've like eyed each other, right? But
No.
But it was the fact that it was specifically shown when it's found out that they're biologically related. Like, yeah, it was really poor taste. But then again, George R. R. Martin has very, very poor taste in the way he writes women
Yeah.
and sex. So who knows?
I would. It was.
This could be straight from the book, for all we know.
That is a good point, and it's unfortunate because it's. I don't know. There are certain shocking things that we already have Jamie and Cersei. Why do we need another pseudo incestuous couple? I mean,
it
Because
breeds
it's
the
a
tension.
mysterious sexual couple. It's the unknown. And it has to set up plot later on. This isn't probably spoiling anything, but at some point Bran tells Jon.
hey,
That
you like
peace
your
out.
auntie? Do you like your auntie?
Well, it also kind of too sets it up a little bit too of like there is now potentially another challenge for the throne,
A challenge for the
another
throne.
claim that Daenerys doesn't
Mhm.
know about there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a better claim than what Daenerys has too.
True. More direct.
More direct.
Do you-
Go
real
ahead.
quick, one last question there. On the directness of the claim. Do you think that she will be all? She's all been about it is her rightful claim, all this lawful stuff, and how they need to lawfully bow to the lawful ruler of the lawful land. And this is her rightful, place because it is historically hers, and et cetera, et cetera. Do you think now that all that's turned on her, she's going to be very accepting of it?
Absolutely not. Because it's never really been hers by right too, according to the land anyways. She believed it's always been hers because it was her family's, but the way we've talked about it though too is like when the family gets overthrown, the family doesn't have a claim to it anymore. They have to then overthrow the family that overthrew them.
Yeah.
So it's never been
We've
sorry. It's
You're
never
good.
it's
No,
never
you're good.
been hers by right. It's just been she wants it would have to be hers by force.
everyone's in
Also-
a usurper depending on how far back you go. So yeah, it just
Exactly.
depends on who's going after it.
I agree, but also on another level, her own family's history has overruled the idea of a precedent of a claim falling to a woman at all, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good tie-in.
Which is I disagree with it, but yeah, I do wonder that too because obviously we know what's going to happen, but I'll be curious to see how the book plays that out as well.
You keep
Especially because there's another unnamed, well, not unnamed, we know there's another plot line in the book of another Targaryen that is completely omitted from the show, so I'll be very curious to see how that works out.
You keep mentioning this fantastical book that's eventually coming. I think you mentioned
Someday I have a dream that this book will come out, that George won't leave me hanging.
Make sure you write him in his blog there to tell him to not leave us hanging.
What's this? Famous celebrity author passes untimely? What? I can't read this here.
He would never do that to me, Nick. He would never do that to me.
That famous. I love that meme. That kind of it sets it up like George died, but it's like, and today, on this sad day, George did nothing or whatever. I'll have to go find it here after the podcast, but to throw it over to Gary, I think we've probably covered about everything from this episode, so I don't even know if Gary has anything more to talk about.
I always have something.
Oh shit! I guess
Conspiracy
we haven't covered
theory
the ending
number
completely. But
8.
Hold on. Ready. I noted that again in the intro. Old Town is still in the intro, like apropos to nothing. Like I do not understand why Old Town is still in the intro. I think there's a callback when you first meet the Hound in this episode where he says, "If anyone touches it, I'll kill you first," which I think is a callback to the archers on the sacking of Battle of the Blackwater, where he's like, "If any of you archers hit me with flaming arrows, you'll die first," or something of that
Nice.
nature.
Good tie-in.
I noted that in the behind the scenes, Braun is not at the Dragon Pit, and that could be the fact that the Cersei actor, the Braun actor, can never be seen on the screen together. Just do you? Maybe we talked about the Tyrion conversation earlier. Do you feel that the Tyrion backbone is to kind of prove that he's changed, or I made a note that like is it supposed to make you believe that Tyrion has grown as a character, that he's willing to push back against his sister, Nick?
I think it's meant to be that, yeah. Whether or not it is, I'll leave to you all. I think that it's meant to show that he's changed because he thinks Daenerys can change the system. He says he thinks that she'll build a better world, she'll do it right. He believes in her more so than his own sister, who's currently sitting on the throne. He could just say, "Oh, I'm with the Lannisters," and boom, he's already got a queen on the throne. The reason he goes against her is because he believes, well, just what he said in the opening when he's addressing the whole congregation there. He says, if all we wanted to do was more killing, we wouldn't need this meeting. So he wants peace in some form, or resolution at the very least.
Okay. I made a note of the conversation where Cersei changed her mind as asking if perhaps that several chapters of the book or the story were cut out to get from no to yes, I'll help you. Like, I kind of noted that. Do you feel like there was probably some exposition and some time passing that's maybe been cut out of the show to make all of this happen in one episode?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
There's a lot that happens in this episode we've mentioned, so I think, yeah, some time was probably cut out to show them waiting.
Yeah,
I don't know if
likely.
it's been mentioned before. The Golden Company comes into the conversation in this episode. I don't know if they've been alluded to before this.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago, they were Cersei was having negotiations with the Golden Company.
Okay,
With the
maybe
Iron
I just
Bank,
missed that.
wasn't it? Or was
Was it with the Iron? But I think it was in negotiations with the Iron Bank to hire the Golden Company, though. I was pretty sure.
It was with the Iron Bank about paying off the debt in the one with the wagon train episode, and said that once the Iron Bank realized that their debt was paid off, obviously they wouldn't be getting any more funds. So they threw out, "We could help you acquire more troops," and I think they threw out the name of the Golden Company, was all, who are more mercenaries from Essos. A bit more organized military than the Second Sons, I believe.
Okay. Oh, I noticed the conversation between Arya and Sansa on the wall. I noticed a couple things. as Arya stands there, she has her hand on the pommel of her sword, kind of much like a knight. I thought that was an interesting kind of stance where she doesn't stand like a lady and she doesn't stand like a kid. She stands like somebody who's like, I don't know what Steven's doing. I think he's making a
Nick. It's Nick.
oh, Nick's doing funny things.
I'm on the panel.
Also in that
I'm ready to ask the
interaction, I didn't catch that they say that they both say that I will miss him, referring to their father. And I thought that was kind of an interesting kind of retrospective because at the time of that Ned Stark left the show, I feel like both of his daughters felt like he was holding them back. Holding Arya back from being a warrior or knight, and Sansa was being held back from, becoming a future Lannister. Like, Ned was still very suspicious of the Lannisters, or the Baratheons, future Baratheons, sorry. And how they both kind of became a lady and a warrior kind of in spite or because of Ned's death.
I can agree with that one, Gary.
The last thing, as I said, kind of a boring episode. When the White Walkers show up out of the mist, I noted that the horn was blown 3 times. Once for friend, 2 for foes, 3 for White Walkers.
Nice catch. Look at you listening to some actual... What is that?
Exposition?
Exposition? I was going to say like foreshadowing. That's not the right word. Yeah.
Anyway, that is all I had for this episode. So I'll pass it back to Tyler.
I will say the fucking Night King had that dragon cooking as it was flying around there. Like, you don't see Dany just fly the dragons that fast. The Night King just went boom right on by.
Well, not just that.
And he hovers. He has like a hovering attack.
Well, I mean,
Well,
Dany did that too, but...
So I actually paused and measured. I paused and measured how long he lets the dragon shoot fire continuously, and it is 1 minute and 12 seconds of just straight shooting fire. And I'm just like, I feel like even if it's an undead dragon, it's not doing that. But it was it has 2 small attacks and then 1 just 1 minute and 12 seconds of screen time of just fire.
Is it implied that it's ice damage or just like that it's some sort of magic?
Blue fire, I don't know.
Blue because
I don't
the
know.
White Walkers.
It's an undead dragon, chaotic evil, but it is definitely not throwing out.
But I think that does go to the point of we're getting back to Tyler's question from before of what is this fire? Is it normal fire? Does it explode? Does it have like heavy physical properties to it? Because it hits the wall and the wall of ice literally shatters like it's having multiple giant baseballs thrown at it.
It's implied that the wall is partially made of magic, though. So I assume that's what this is supposed to be, is that it's destroying the magical structure of the...
That's what I was going to say, too. Like, I assume it's been implied that there's magic in there because that's what stops, like, cold hands from going underneath the wall. But, so is the Dragonfire doing away with the magic? Because Dragonfire, I don't know if I'm getting this lore from other shows or from Game of Thrones, but I've heard Dragonfire can deal with some of the magic. They certainly burnt down the house of the who was it? The undead. I don't know. The warlocks. The Undying. Way back somewhere. Undying. Thank you. So like, it's got some kind of effect against magic, but that wall is still pretty thick.
And it goes right through.
Like it's a thin pane of ice on a window instead of something that literally stays up during all the summers.
That's why they send the low-level grunts through first to make sure the magic's not there.
Oh, there you go. Smart.
It does 1d12 necrotic damage per second.
Yes. But then also when sorry, I'm cutting in front of Tyler multiple times here. I'm sorry, but
yeah, go with your point there, Stephen, because mine's about what our favorite directors talk about for this episode.
Ah, gotcha. So when
Always
these
choosing hate.
when these grunts are actually walking through the wall as well, they have a really nice soft surface to walk through. It's very smooth. It is not jagged like something broke down. It is like it was nicely plowed, so they have a nice walking scene to get through, and it's
not icy, so they can't
it's
slip
not
and
icy.
fall.
No.
Safety first. Maybe it like is a heat property and it melts the ice into water, but they are still that far in the north, so it instantly melts into like a nice soft, mushy sand, like a fresh powder. There's fresh powder. Some of the
So it goes
walkers are
from
going to do
ice
some
to like
boarding
the
later.
snow powder.
Yes.
Sure.
Magic.
We'll go with that.
Magic.
This was a very shocking scene, though, for so many different people. And it was again, this goes up there with the Rhaegar reveal of, oh, wow, this is happening. He is riding a dragon. This is happening.
And I know the dragon is undead, or what? I don't know if it's a white or if they turn him into a dragon walker. I honestly am not sure, because the fire turning blue makes me wonder if there's something. Everyone else, like, I mean, when they swing their sword, it doesn't show little blue sparks or anything, so I don't know where that power comes from. But dragons, before they died, like, they don't just take any rider. So I'm wondering if that changes when they're dead and they can control them, or if all the rules are thrown out because they died. Kind of curious.
I think all the rules are thrown out because he died, and
yeah.
the Night King took control of him.
It's a zombie, yeah.
Zombies
the
have
zombie crown.
rules.
Zombies do
If the
not have rules.
Zombies
If the
have
Night
rules.
There is no
If the Night
Isaac
King-
Asimov.
If the Night King can ride any reanimated organic creature, could the Night King technically hop on the back of like another white? Just get like a piggyback ride?
Yeah, the Giants give him.
He's on a mount with
Yes.
a horse. A
Yes.
giant. That'd be so cool. It'd be like the Lord of the Rings and the Battle of the Five Armies, right?
Scary conspiracy theory. Ready? The reason the Night King can get your board. Yep. The reason the Night King can ride the dragon is because he was a Targaryen before he was changed. Except for we know where he
snap.
came from.
So, the part I wanted to call out here about this that I picked up from the inside the episode part, which I again advise all of you to spend some time watching these when we move into season 8 here, is
No.
Or don't.
earlier in the show, they knew this would be the ending of the penultimate season, the part of the wall going down. In the books, it's obviously being set up, I think, as something totally different. I think it's going to deal with the horn bringing down the wall that gets mentioned in the books a bunch there. But like, it felt like to me, this is just kind of like a way the writers just kind of, they need to get the White Walkers south of the wall. How do they do that? Well, they showed the horn way back in season 1, but instead of going through the care and time of talking about it throughout the seasons, building it up as little plots and details or whatever, they just completely left it out. So like, well, shit, how do we get the White Walkers south of the wall now? Well, let's have Dany come up north. Dany loses a dragon. They reanimate the dragon, and the dragon can now shoot blue fire to burn down, to explode the wall there to get the White Walkers south. So it just kind of felt like it, like for the show, it all made sense because that's how they set up in the show, but it just kind of just felt off here or whatever of this is our solution to the problem that we wrote ourselves into by combining storylines and all that stuff that we've done throughout the past 7 seasons. But I just thought that was interesting. Like, they claim they had this all planned out way back when. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't.
It's all part of the magic, Tyler.
It's all part of the movie magic there.
Ugh.
Just like brown, green, and blue eyes. All right. So I think that's probably going to wrap it up for us here, unless anybody else has anything they want to talk about. Everyone's thinking real hard.
We're going into the last season.
6 hours of story left to tell.
6 hours of story, friends.
Did you say at the beginning of this is 36?
This is episode 36. Yep.
Wow.
We'll eventually hit episode
I
43.
need to find more productive means of my time.
Yeah, instead of talking to you guys for 2 hours every other Tuesday.
Hmm.
All right. Well, for next time, we will be watching season 8, episode 1, Winterfell.
I wonder what happens there.
Mm, Nothing.
I wonder
I
where it
did
takes
want to-
place.
Essos.
Straight
Essos.
up. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Dorne.
Is this
I
the
did want-
notoriously like sunglasses episode?
No, that I think I know what you're talking about.
No.
I don't think that's this episode.
I did want to end.
I think that
with-
episode's called like The Long Night or something
Yeah,
stupid.
that sounds right.
Oh, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yep.
I was
don't
trying
know
to
if-
decide if I
I-
wanted to know where Gary was going or if it was the
Right.
a
I
scary
will be
place.
drinking once we have to watch that again. Amanda, I will have to watch it with you, and I will be drinking heavily again while we watch it.
Oh my
That will
Is
be
goodness.
a
that
thing.
the requirement to watch that episode?
It
That
is.
episode is so anyway, not spoiling
Well,
anything.
When I'm constantly pausing
Spoilers.
to take notes, I think he'll be taking a drink every time I do it. So regardless, is going to be drinking.
That seems like some of these episodes, like I understand they're trying to, but I think I mentioned this episode's like an hour and 20, so they're just getting freaking long. Like they're just dragging. Anyway, Tyler, we
Gary-
can wrap
poor
up this
Gary,
this,
but yeah.
this this clown show.
I wanted to end this episode with Jaime's kind words to his brother Tyrion when Tyrion says he's going in to talk to the most murderous woman in this episode before they have that great scene. Jaime says, "I suppose we should say goodbye, one idiot to another." So, goodbye.
All right. That'll do it for us here at the Rewatch Podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.